Chairman Kelly, if you could get us kicked off.
Thank you. We're here for the June 9 meeting of the Board of Ethics. I believe the first order of business is to take the roll and approve the agenda. If you could call the roll, that would be great, Mr. Roca.
Absolutely. Member Caffrey?
Here.
Member Cuniff?
Here.
Member Martinez?
Here.
Member Kelly?
Here,
Or Chairman Kelly?
also a member.
Okay. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Excellent. So for the agenda, any questions about the agenda before we approve it? If not, all those in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Chairman, I believe we need a first and a second.
Oh, you're right.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
And a second, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes.
I apologize because we're on, this is cumbersome, but I believe because we're on Zoom, we need a roll call vote for the AG's or OMA guidance. So
For the what, say that again?
for the AG's OMA guidance, we need a roll call vote because we're on Zoom.
Okay, so we didn't call the roll. We didn't call the names of the people who are absent. Is that right?
No, we need to go, like, we need to call,
One by one.
we need to call the vote by name. So we need to ask each member how they vote.
On the
Well,
Every item, yeah, for every item.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll call the roll.
okay.
Member Caffrey?
Yes.
Member Cuniff?
Yes.
Member Martinez?
Yes,
Chairman Kelly?
Thank you. Yes.
4-0.
And that was the roll on the agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the next order of business is the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any major any questions about those minutes?
I don't have any. The regulatory change we worked on last meeting looks to be correct in the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
The second,
Yeah, second.
call the roll call, is that correct? Because we're on Zoom.
That's correct. Member Caffrey?
Yes.
Member Cuniff?
Yes.
Member Martinez?
yes,
Chairman Kelly?
Yes.
4-0.
Mr. Roca, read the next item on the agenda, please.
The next item on the agenda is the overview of the disclosure changes. And I believe Clerk Watson will take care of that presentation.
Clerk Watson?
Thank you for having me here today. Could the host of the meeting give me screen sharing privileges? And Chairman Kelly and members of the board, my intention, so there was recently some significant updates to the city's charter provisions regarding the type of financial disclosures that the city's elected officials need to make. And, you know, it's our first year implementing these. I thought I would give the board a general overview of them at this point. We anticipate there will be many questions that we don't have answers to as of this time, but I thought I could at least give you all an overview, and so that you're aware of the issue in case we receive complaints about it, or if there's guidance or, advisory opinions the board has to address in the future. So if anyone has any questions at any time, please let me know. And this is very general, and I frankly may not have the answer as of this time. So the reporting period for the reporting that they are going to be filing is the prior calendar year. I like to just put that up the front. And the things in general that they will be reporting are employment, real property, assets other than real property, income, liabilities, privately held businesses, professional licenses and membership, and gifts. And as I just stated, because this is going to be the first report filed this year, we anticipate many questions from filers, and we will work through them as we receive them. So I'll give you a sense now of what the filers will be reporting under each of those categories. And these notes are essentially from the guide we developed to assist filers in filling out the form. So as far as employment, the filers have to report any person who employed them or their spouse during the reporting period. And we stated that an employment relationship exists and must be disclosed when a person pays the filer or their spouse any compensation in exchange for work. The disclosure only requires disclosure of the fact of employment, and as I'll address later, it doesn't require disclosure of like amounts paid, for example. With regard to real property, each filer is required to report each piece of real property they own, their spouse owns, or property that's owned by their dependent children. They have to report the identity, location, and purpose of each piece of real property. There are some caveats regarding personal residences. They are not required to disclose that in full. They just have to report the zip code or the county. Assets are where this does start to get a little more complicated. So the filers do generally have to report assets with a value over $50,000 that they either directly or beneficially own, or their spouse or dependent children own. They have to provide the name of the asset, who owns it, the type of the asset, and a description. Where this does, I think, is going to take them some time is to the extent they own stocks, commodities, bonds, futures, options, derivatives, anything in a real estate investment trust, mutual funds. There's a whole range of assets that could be captured by this. As far as the description, we've informed the filers that they have to provide a description sufficient to identify the asset or source being reported, and the amount of information required will really depend on the type of asset or income being reported. For stocks, we've said they should provide the name of the issuing company. For stock in a privately held company, they should describe the issuer's business. For publicly traded stocks, obviously the ticker would probably be sufficient. I anticipate going to receive a number of questions around mutual funds and exchange traded funds, because I think those are a type of asset that many people own. I'm not clear if many people own more than $50,000 in a mutual fund. And so, we may need to work with filers on that. But it does include, again, as I noted, anything that's owned by the filer's spouse, or the filer's dependent children. Income, they do have to report so in this filing period, they are going to have to report all sources of income, essentially over around $600, because that's the amount that must be disclosed to the IRS. I need to double check that, but pursuant to that cited section. And again, this is for the filer, their spouse, or their children. They do have to identify the source. If there is a legal obligation of confidentiality, they can list that source as confidential. With indirect sources of income, where it's a client of a business entity, where they are a member, again, we anticipate there may be questions about this, and we are we are working to be ready to answer questions that filers may have about that. But because I think some of these sources of income may be kind of complicated to report, but that generally covers it. So they do need to report income that they receive generally, even if it's not directly from employment. Liabilities. The filers are going to have to report any liability more than $5,000 owed by the filer, their spouse, or their children. It has to include the identity of the person who owes the debt, the person to whom the debt is owed, and the amount of the debt, and any payments on the debt during the previous calendar year. There is an exclusion for ordinary consumer debt, mortgage debt, or student loans, or liabilities owed to family members. And so I think this, this is helpful because I do think these are common types of debt that a lot of people have. And so we are not looking for that. We are looking, the ordinance really looks to have people report sort of other types of liabilities they may have beyond the ordinary consumer liabilities. Privately held businesses. So the reporting requirement is that for any privately held business controlled by the filer, their spouse, or their dependent children, they have to report the name of the business, the nature of the business's activities, and the location of the business. For businesses that are held for the purpose of holding investments, there's additional requirements. In short, they have to report assets of more than $50,000 that generate income directly or beneficially owned by the business entity. They also have to report liabilities of the entity. And that is only, though, liabilities that are greater than $50,000. So, this is another area where we anticipate filers potentially reaching out to us with questions. We are preparing to answer those, and we hope we can be of assistance in ensuring the filers are able to accurately report their business activities. Professional licenses and memberships. They do have to report any licenses that they hold or that their spouses hold, as well as board memberships, offices, or other positions they or their spouse hold in any corporations, partnership, or trusts, or other for-profit businesses, and any nonprofit organizations, educational organizations, or political organizations, as well as non-governmental organizations. This is, I think, one of the more straightforward aspects of this. I don't anticipate many questions around this, but I could be wrong. Finally, gifts. The filers are required to report any gift received in the prior calendar year by them, their spouse, or their dependent children having a market value of greater than $50 from a restricted donor, a registered lobbyist, a lobbyist's employer, a government contractor, or a person that has responded to a request for proposals or an invitation to bid issued by the city. We are hoping that on a going forward basis that maybe the filers will more actively document gifts received throughout the year. I'm anticipating that this is the first year and that this covers a period where the ordinance wasn't in effect, that this may be a challenge, but we've advised filers to report to the best of their knowledge as of this time. And so that's it. I think we are, that is an overview of what they will be required to report. As I said, we are anticipating many questions, but we are excited overall about this because this is one of the, I think, best disclosure provisions in the state. It's my understanding that this is actually more than statewide elected officials are required to fill out. And so we are excited that the city council and the mayor are leading in this area. And so are there any questions from the board about this new provision?
Ethan, do all city employees have to report, or is it just a subset?
No, and it's not even a subset. It's just the city's elected officials.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
On
Go
the
ahead.
assets, will that include art and jewelry if it has maybe an insured value of over the certain threshold?
My gut says yes. But let me look.
Did you use the word personal property in there? Because it would come under that.
Yes.
Oh,
I
Is
would
there-
think that would need to be reported if you had personal property worth more than $50,000. Yeah, so I would anticipate yes, but you know, that's actually not a question we've received yet, so thank you.
Uh, Member Martinez, any questions? Oh,
I guess you kind of answered it, Ethan, but this did come from the city and the mayor just kind of wanting to get more information from filers, or where exactly did this?
So this was I apologize, Member Martinez, for interrupting, but this was an ordinance that was proposed and sponsored by 3 of the city councilors. It was actually not an ordinance, it was a change to our city charter to require a higher level of financial disclosure of those who are in elected office. And so it was voted in unanimously by the city council. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
what is what's the charter provision that will find it? Where is it in the charter? Do you know?
It's in Article 12, Section 5.
Excuse me.
And I am, and so the board is aware, I am working on some rulemaking. Under that provision of the charter, I have authority to do rulemaking regarding administration. I am going to promulgate a complaint diversion process, like we have in the election code and the other areas and the open ethical election code. You know, I like election laws, I view a lot of this as pretty technical, and our goal really is compliance. And so we do want to build in a voluntary compliance process to assist filers in coming into compliance.
And maybe just for the record, if I may, Mr. Watson, when did it go into effect?
So it went into effect in late December of last year. And then I was tasked with developing a form for the filers to fill out. For a number of reasons, I was not able to do that until this week. And so pursuant to my administrative responsibilities under this, we will deem timely filed any report received by September 5th of 2023.
which would be for 2022?
Correct.
Okay.
And I don't know that I would do a similar extension in the future, but for a couple reasons, I was just not able to get them to form any earlier than this month.
And if I may, the elected officials who must report are, is it only in a year in which they're up for re-election, or do they have to do it every year?
They have to do it every year. And so this is an annual disclosure by all the city's elected officials. And there are, I will say, you know, to the extent the board is interested in pursuing or suggesting revisions in this area, there are several different disclosures required under the code, and they do differ slightly. So for example, there is a different disclosure that candidates fill out. You know, in the future, as we move forward in these areas, it may be interesting to try and align these provisions or make them run on the same time frame, or make some other revisions to bring them more into alignment. But this is an annual disclosure, so I answer your question after a long digression.
Oh, no. So I'm still embarrassed to say I am not able to see the agenda. What do we have? What do we have next?
I think the next.
And the next item on the agenda is discussion on other board training.
Oh, good. Mr. Watson, did you have some thoughts on that?
Yes, I would just say that if the board is interested, I'm happy to, there are a number of ordinances that the board enforces that come up less frequently. For example, the lobbyist registration ordinance. And if the board is interested, I'm happy to do a similar overview as I just did on those ordinances. Or any other training regarding any other subject for that matter. So I think this is really to the board. I think if there's any specific areas you'd like me to focus on or give an overview on, I'm happy to do that. Or any specific areas for follow-up. Yeah, I'm all ears.
So let me, since I'm the newest member, let me start, because I raised this question with Ethan. I'm sorry, Ethan. How did you finish right there?
Oh, just that I'm all ears. I'm happy to give a training on whatever the board's interested in. We have a couple different ordinances: lobbyist, code of ethics, open and ethical election code, and the campaign finance, the election code. Those are the big ones, and I'm happy to do individual trainings on each of those, or proceed in any way the board prefers.
So I think what I raised was that ethics is in the title of our board, or the description of what we do, even though generally speaking, it's really campaign finance compliance. And I'm wondering out loud whether some more fundamental ethics training, I think of it kind of like a CLE or something that a lawyer might take in an area where they're going to get involved more specifically later on, whether that kind of basic training in ethics might be useful or informative. Really nothing beyond that, but just as somebody coming in new, even if that was a 2-hour presentation, down at the clerk's office on ethics or writ large, I thought it might be interesting or useful, at least as an option for members who might like it.
Chairman Kelly, I will say
the other way of looking, I'm sorry. The other way of looking at the job is it's simply compliance oversight of city ordinances, which is correct, but that's my only caveat.
I was going to say, I did recently see a presentation that Jeremy Ferris, the director of the State Ethics Commission, gave to the New Mexico Municipal League. It was very good, and it gave an overview of the major areas of government ethics, which was kind of, I'm going to blank on it, of course, but disclosure is one of them, and then there's a couple others. And I could, if the board wants, I could reach out to him as a starting point and see if he's able to come and present before us.
But how does that strike? That's a nice suggestion. How does that strike the members? How does this whole subject strike the members of the board?
Sounds good to me.
Me too.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
I will do that, and I'll have an update at the next meeting then.
That's great. And did Jeremy present? How did he do it? Did he present directly to the board?
It was at a municipal lawyer's CLE, and so it wasn't.
Oh,
it was in a room, but he could probably do it any number of ways, I think, depending on the board's availability. I mean, if we want to do an in-person meeting, I'm sure he could present in person, but if we also want to have him present via Zoom for telecast, and that could also probably be fine.
well, if I may, then what's the sense of the board in connection with respect to Ethan's suggestion that this might be a fairly straightforward and compared to other sorts of trainings, very uncomplicated one, apparently from somebody who knows a little bit about this, whether you might like to at least hear more about it and have the opportunity to embrace it if Mr. Ferris is available.
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
But
Or-
yeah, I would. I would attend.
Well, I will reach out to him and have an update for the board at the next meeting then.
That'd be awesome. Maybe ask him for if there's any sort of summary of what he covers, if you could get that, and for some potential dates in the next 4 months or so, or 3 months.
And depending on our agenda, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if we don't have a lot to discuss at the next meeting and he's available, I may just, if it's okay with you, try and schedule it if that's. Yeah.
Any objections to that? Does that seem like a good idea if he's available?
I think it's a good idea to try and incorporate the training into the regular meeting. So we're not dealing with sort of having multiple
You're
BOE.
right. That's an excellent suggestion. Was that your thought too, Mr. Watson?
Yeah, absolutely. If I can make him fit into one of our schedules, that'd be great. So, yeah.
It may end up going half the morning, but that's all right.
And we'll all get some CLE credit too, except for you, Member Martinez. Yeah. And Member Sullivan, yeah.
Well, Member Kelly no longer has to worry about it.
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying,
Fair enough.
when you retire, you literally give up your license and you put it in the bar bulletin. But I think it will be interesting, and we'll see if he's of a mind to do it for us. Mr. Roca, anything else on the agenda?
Mr. Chair, the last item is adjournment.
Is there anything on anyone's mind, with respect to what we've discussed today or our next meeting? What's the date of our next meeting, Mr. Roca?
The next meeting will be on July
14th.
14th.
That's also a Friday.
Yes, sir. July 14th at 9 a.m.
And
Okay.
Mr. Watson, just quickly, I know there's already some candidates out there collecting donations, things like that. Can you give us just a brief timeline? I know it's online and in the packets, but as far as when those dates are of filing, collecting signatures, collecting $5 donations.
Yes, hold on 1 minute.
I'm sorry for.
I had this literally on the floor of my office, so hold on 1 second. So currently we are in the qualifying contribution period, which is and petition period, which is when the candidates can gather both the qualifying contributions if they are running publicly financed and their petition signatures if they are publicly or privately financed. That is running from started June 5th and that goes through July 10th.
And is July 10 the end of collecting qualifying contributions and petition signatures?
Correct.
I'm sorry, anybody else have any questions of Mr. Watson about that? Is the list of putative candidates a matter of public record yet? Or how does that work?
Yes, Chairman, it's online and it's, I believe Mr. Rocha can probably list them all better than I can, but I think there's 11 candidates right now. And there's a number of candidates in District 6. Most of the other districts, I think, have 2 or 3 candidates.
I think there's 6 in District 6. Well, that's what I've heard.
Clerk Watson, there's now 13 candidates total.
Wow, okay, so.
And that they're on your website, right, Mr. Watson?
Correct. Yes, and then we could actually post, Mr. Rocha, do you want to post a link to in the chat for anyone who's interested? And we can send out a link after the meeting in case the board is interested, just so. But it is on our website. Oh, and I'll share this with the board if the board is interested. Let me just share the screen right now. So this is a page that is available online to the public. And we list the candidates in each district. So District 2, there's 3 candidates. District 4, there's 2 candidates. District 6 is where there's a significant number of candidates. It looks like there's 6 candidates. And then District 8, there are 2 candidates.
What's the sort of high level link to get there?
It's in the chat.
I beg your pardon?
It's in the chat on the Zoom, Mr. Chair, but I can also send it out. I can send you an email afterwards with it.
That'd be awesome.
Chairman Kelly, it's also found on cabq.gov/vote. On the right-hand side, we have a candidate dashboard, sort of as a quick link for you.
Vote, is that cabq.gov.vote
Slash
vote?
Yep.
Thank you. I think we've completed our agenda. Anybody have a different thought about that? And failing that, any other business that you want to bring before the board? If not, we would entertain I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Sorry.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Rocha, would you call the roll?
Absolutely. Member Caffrey,
Yes.
Member Kunith,
Yes.
Member Martinez.
Yes.
I believe Member Sullivan has dropped off. Oh. She just rejoined the meeting. Member Sullivan, we are voting on the adjournment. How do you stand? Member Sullivan?
Member Sullivan's
I think she's still muted.
Yes, I got it. Yes, I concur.
And Chairman Kelly?
yes as well. I concur.
Okay, 5-0.
That concludes the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ethan, for your office's work